Welcome back, everybody. So there are growing concerns over what is an increasing push from the private sector to have the notice on redundancy pay law removed. Joining us this morning to unpack this, trade unionist and the Jamaica Association of Local Government Officers. Let me tell you what her position is. And trade unionist. Helene, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I want to ask you what your correct title is.
I'm General Secretary of the Jamaica Association of Local Government Officers.
GenSec. Thank you very much, madam, for helping me with that. We understand you're recovering from a bout of the flu, so we're glad you're here with us this morning. How are you feeling?
I am doing well, thank God.
Okay, good. All right, talk to us a little bit about this move, this push. First of all, just explain a little bit to us what is the aim, what are they trying to do?
Well, employers, private sector generally have been complaining for the last several years about the Termination of Employment and Redundancy Payments Act. And this is the act that allows or entitles workers in certain circumstances once a firm is reorganizing or is being closed to make payments to workers who have served over the years in the firm. A number of the private sector entities have been saying that at the time when they are seeking to make changes for improvement in the operation of the firm, is never normally the best time for them to be making redundancy payments. And so they feel that the Redundancy Payments Act should be repealed. Because I think have strengthened since we have been having discussions around the unemployment insurance, which would provide workers who are out of jobs for various periods of time to be able to collect portions of their salary over that period of time. And so the view of the private sector is that that is enough and they should not be called upon to make redundancy payments. Of course, from the union's perspective, we disagree. We have looked at several other territories where there is unemployment insurance, and they have the equivalent of redundancy payments in a lot of countries. It's called severance pay. And so we do not believe that one replaces the other. And so the unions maintain that the law should remain in effect.
What obtains now, Helene? Can it be said that if you're made redundant, it's the same thing like if you get fired, type of thing?
Not exactly, because you have to be terminated in particular circumstances. So a company may be seeking to reorganize and decide that this particular position is not needed, in which case the holder of that position would become entitled to redundancy payments, or if the company is closing down, then the persons who are employed would become eligible for redundancy payments as well.
I asked the question that way because isn't there an obligation to the employer that if you are fired, you have to get X amount of money? And right now, because of the way the law is set up, if you are made redundant, you have to get X amount of money, don't?
If you are fired for cause, there is no redundancy payment that is made. What would have to kick in, because the same law speaks to notice pay as well.
Okay.
You would have to give the individual the requisite period of notice that the law provides for.
But also, Helene,
you're not entitled to redundancy.
I mean, it sounds like splitting hairs, but firing is the individual. Is the redundancy more the position?
Yes. The redundancy is about the position, and therefore it is the position that is made redundant and not the individual.
Right.
Yeah,
Although how people speak of it, it would appear that it is the person, but it is the position that
Right.
is made redundant.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not certain if I got the answer when I said what obtains now. So if I'm made redundant, what happened? I get 2-week pay, I get 2-year pay. What happened if I'm made redundant right now?
What the Redundancy Act states is that for persons who have under 10 years service, you get 2 weeks pay for each year of service. For 10 years and over, you get 3 weeks pay for each year of service.
And the private sector is saying they don't want to do that anymore?
No, they are maintaining that it is a burden that is placed on the Jamaican employer, which they cannot afford to bear at this point in time. That's their argument.
And so the proposal is that the worker gets nothing?
Nothing.
Then that can't make sense.
Because as I said, the calls have increased since the discussion on the unemployment insurance has started. But unemployment insurance is a totally different kettle of fish than severance pay or redundancy pay.
So let me ask you, Eileen, I know we benchmarked and I know you know what's going on in other. Is there anywhere in the world where this obtains?
Where there is no redundancy
Where
payment?
there is no redundancy payment?
I think there may be, but in most of the developed economies of the world, and certainly those states that look out for the interests of workers, they do have. Some will call it redundancy, some will call it severance.
Mr. Morrison, the president of the Union of Clerical, Administrative and Supervisory Employees, he says, and I quote, "There is a push from the private sector, and I wouldn't be surprised if the government of the day supports the private sector 100% in this push to remove the notice of redundancy pay law from the books." How much traction is this really getting?
Well, as I said, for the last couple of years, we have been having the discussions around the unemployment insurance, and this is where, that push has been coming through those discussions, because the private sector maintains that once you put in place unemployment insurance, you should do away with redundancy payments. But there's been no agreement whatsoever on that. And usually discussions of this kind would be held within the context of the Labour Advisory Council, on which sit employers, unions, and government. And it is not now on the agenda of the Labour Advisory Council. So, but I expect that the private sector may want to raise it at some point in time. So far, it has not been placed on the agenda of the Labour Advisory Council.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So what happens now? We just kind of wait until more developments occur and then we see how it goes?
Well, certainly from the union's perspective, we will continue to agitate to ensure that the Redundancy Payment Act remains in force. And what we have been saying to employers, if it is that there's a particular law that governs your employment of workers, then what you should be doing is planning for that through whether insurance or some other means of establishing a fund, so that when that time comes, you can make the payment. But you cannot, just wish away the fact that the law is in place and you need to abide by the law. And as I said, we maintain that it is very important, especially in Jamaica, where a lot of employers don't offer pension. So what you would have is a person could be serving for 30 years, and if the company closes and there's no pension, that worker has absolutely nothing to get for the years of service that they have given the employer. So in that context, we are clear that from the union's perspective, that the Redundancy Payment Act has to remain in force, and we will agitate to ensure that that happens.
All right. Look after yourself. Happy holidays, and thanks for speaking with us this morning.
Okay. Thank you very much. Same to you.
Yeah, ma'am.
Eileen.
General Secretary of the Jamaica Association of Local Government Officers, Eileen Davis-White.
Coming up next, Marlon James talks Get Millie Black. We're back with that after this.